Let's decorate a very simple bridal shower cake for my client. She wanted everything white and very petite design, and her cake flavor was red velvet. For this cake, I wanted a very straight, edgy cake, so I'm using a piping bag to pipe equal amount of icing in between the cake layers. And after piping the buttercream on, I'm gonna also take my offset spatula and just smooth the piping equally on the cake. This is just so the end product have a straight cake, and it's very much the same amount of icing in the middle. It is a 6-inch round cake on an 8-inch white board, and it's 3 layers of cake, so we call it 6-inch 3-layered cake. And she also chose red velvet flavor with some cream cheese icing. So I'm just going to firstly crumb coat the cake. I'll just take whatever icing is in my bag and just empty the bag, and I'm gonna blob some more on. Just because my red velvet cake is very moist and it's very crumbly, so I don't want any end product to have red cake crumb. So that's why crumb coating is a very essential part of cake decorating. Because it's cream cheese icing, I feel like the texture is so much different to the American buttercream, but it's equally very, very delicious as well. And as you can see, my cake is lopsiding, which is okay. Don't worry about it. As much as what's important is crumb coating the cake first, so you can pop it in the freezer and let it just chill. Now I'm using a plastic scraper. You could use any kind of cake scraper just to clean the edge off, so we have a nice clean canvas to work with later. Before popping the cake in the freezer, I'm gonna centralize the cake so it comes in the middle, because it has drift off to the side of the board, and I'm gonna check if it's like straight, or I'm happy with that it's crumb coated fully and there's no peeking edges or anything. And then I'm gonna pop it in the freezer. You can pop it in the fridge if you want. Now I'm gonna make some drip. White chocolate ganache, you call it, or drip. I'm using a really high quality white chocolate, about 50 grams to 20 grams of cream. I'm using whipping cream because it's thinner than heavy cream or thickened cream. Using microwave for 30 seconds intervals until my white chocolate is fully melted in the cream. And I'm also making sure there's no lumps by vigorously mixing the batter and making sure the consistency comes out right. If you can see how the yellowy color of the ganache is, and I want it white, so I'm gonna use some food gel from Chef Master to color my ganache white. You can use any food-based color, but I'm using this brand. It's very nice. And I'm going to add the color until I'm happy with how white it is. I also keep checking the consistency, because sometimes when you add the food coloring, it may or may not change the consistency of the drip. And I really want it to be like not too thin and not too thick of a drip. I'm gonna keep mixing until I'm satisfied with the color. And now we're done with the drip. This is how the consistency of my drip looks like. I've got the cake out of the freezer. I'm going to be using a metal scraper for the next step. And before I begin, I'm going to clean my board with a clean, wet cloth. And I'm doing this so the final layer does not have any crumbs whatsoever. I have colored my buttercream white, because sometimes buttercream looks yellowy due to added butter, but that's okay. You can always add white food coloring to make it white. And now I'm gonna fill the piping bag and do the similar technique, but on the side of the cake. I'm piping stripes from bottom till up in long, thin, and equal stripes. It does not have to be equal, but you know, it all helps when you're all putting together the cake to be very elegant and very sharp. I'm gonna dollop all the leftover buttercream, take my offset spatula again and smooth the top, and then smooth the sides. This step requires a lot of practice, but once you do fill your piping bag and put buttercream around, usually it's equal all across. Now taking my metal scraper and scraping the leftover buttercream, not putting pressure at all. I'm so light on this cake just because I don't want whatever we put on the cake to be scraped off directly. Then I'm going to keep cleaning the board as I go and making sure the spatula or the scraper is attached to the cake and not in a right angle at all. And I'm going to clean up the top. I'm going to also clean my blades until so none of the excess buttercream is going to be going back into the cake. I'm keeping on cleaning my board as well. And I'm going to keep going until I am satisfied with this sharp cake. At one point, you do have to tell yourself to stop scraping, otherwise you'll be starting again, and we do not want that. Now it's time for my drip. Now my drip was sitting on the side, so it has cooled down a little bit and it's a bit thick. So I pop it in the microwave for like 10 or 8 seconds, hardly. So it's not warm, but it still gets to the right consistency. And now I'm going to pop it in the piping bag so I can exactly put as much as I want. And for this cake, I'm not dripping all across the side. I'm just doing a couple of drips in the front and the back, wherever I need them to be. I'm piping just on the edge and just dripping and not putting a lot of pressure, just dripping a little bit at a time. And I'm only doing 4 or 5 drips on one corner, and I'm making like a little triangle on top, you'll see. And I'm doing the similar drips on the other side of the cake as well. And this is how the cake looks with the drips on. Using a 6B open star tip from Loyal to pop some dollops, and macarons and preserved hydrangeas are my toppings. I'm just adjusting them with the blob, seeing how it looks. I'm not going to be clustering them. It's a very elegant, a very soft cake as well. I'm just doing as I see. I always put all the garnishes on one side. And I'm also going to be putting some gold leaf finish. With the hydrangea, because they're preserved flowers and not fresh flowers, you do not need to wash them or prep them. They're normally used for decorations anyway. They're non-edible, so you do have to tell your client or anyone who's eating the cake that they're non-edible. I'm just going to see how I fit them and how they look, and just dollop around them. If they poke a big hole in the cake and it looks awkward, just dollop some more icing to hide that spot. This is how our cake looks. Let me know what you would like to see next.